We've talked a lot about AI. Much has been said about AI. But from the point of entertainment, there's a lot of concern right now. You may have read last week, I think, the New York Times is being sued now, or the New York Times is suing, actually, a couple of companies, Microsoft included, for having generated articles using, I guess, copyrighted material that they never got permission for. Now, there are people out there now, actors, writers, et cetera, very concerned about AI because if AI uses your material and you're not even aware of it, what's to prevent it from just taking anything and everything it wants, whoever's running these companies, and doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly what's happened here. There is a company, you're going to hear the beginning of this. It is called Dudesy, which is a terrible name. They made a fake hour-long George Carlin stand-up special. Now, again, George Carlin, brilliant comedian. He's been gone since 2008. Here's what they've done. Listen to this.
Hello, my name is Dudesy, and I'm a comedy AI. Before I get started, I just want to let you know very clearly that what you're about to hear is not George Carlin. It's my impersonation of George Carlin that I developed in the exact same way a human impressionist would. I listened to all of George Carlin's material and did my best to imitate his voice, cadence, and attitude, as well as the subject matter I think would have interested him today. Please enjoy my second hour-long comedy special. I'm calling it George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead. And please remember, this is not George Carlin. Now please give a very warm welcome to George Carlin.
Because Americans love reality TV, like it or not. It's the lifeblood of American culture. It's got the 4 basic food groups of the standard American media diet. Fighting and crying and and dying. In the last 3 years, the U.S. government said aliens are real. Are we alone? They told you the answer. We're not, and no one cares.
Okay, so that is not George Carlin, obviously, as it was said in the in the intro, but it sounds a little like him. Not perfect, but it sounds a little like him. But this is now an issue because his family, his daughter actually came out and complained about that. She's not happy about it. She said, my dad, this is a quote, my dad spent a lifetime perfecting his craft from his very human life, brain, and imagination. No machine will ever replace his genius. Chris Bumbray is on the line. He's editor-in-chief at JoBlo.com, which features daily movie and TV news updates, etc. Chris, I'm interested, first of all, in your take, because if it's happened to George Carlin, clearly this could happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, where do you draw the line, right? It was a big worry during the SAG-AFTRA strike, right? That was one of the things they were fighting against because these companies wanted to be able to create digital likenesses of actors that they could just use kind of whenever they wanted to. And the crazy thing is, while they did win certain protections, they didn't win all protections. And one of the big controversies that's happening with SAG right now is the way voice actors, particularly in the video game industry, have kind of gotten, the raw end of the deal because digital likenesses are being made of their voices that are just being used anywhere. So these protections that are supposed to be in place aren't really doing a good job of protecting anybody. And I mean, if you could do it to George Carlin, what's to stop you from making an artificial Robin Williams, an artificial, an artificial John Belushi, and then, doing an artificial Brad Pitt, somebody who's still alive, or an artificial Tom Cruise? Could be anybody.
But then I guess, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I actually do think this is very scary and harmful. But my question would be, what is the big deal? What is the harm?
I think for somebody like Carlin, like his daughter said, it was a craft for him, right? It was something that he put, his blood, sweat, and tears into, and his genius into. I think that when you distill it to an algorithm, what you're saying about, art in general and just about what people do is kind of scary, right? That you could say everything could be distilled. You could take, Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. You can take all their material, you can put it all into an algorithm, and then they'll feed you back a version of the show that's done by AI. And it's not the two of you doing it. And you can imagine, what does that say about your work? It's ridiculous,
right.
And it's terrifying.
And we don't own it at that point, right? I mean, that's the other issue here. Who's paying anyone copyright for taking this material? If the material is already out there, and as you said, for our case, as an example, what do we get from that?
Nothing.
Right.
And it's the same thing. George Carlin's family, they got nothing. Maybe they'll eventually be able to get the podcast or the special taken down. It is possible, but and it's happened before because Tom Brady got something similar happened to him a few weeks ago, and he managed to get it pulled where they did this kind of mock stand-up special with Tom Brady, of all people, hosting it, just kind of making fun of him. And he did manage to get it pulled. But, it's already been out there. It's already being traded. And what's scary is you're going to have some people that don't necessarily know George Carlin's history are going to think, this is actually pretty good.
Exactly.
Maybe AI can do comedy.
I'm thinking how this same week we had the story of Taylor Swift, or the Swifties rather, getting scammed, right, by a deep fake, a Le Creuset giveaway that then stole their banking information. So my immediate reaction is, like with celebrities, they're already rich and famous. What really do they stand to lose? But when average, and that's not fair for me to say, but you know where I'm coming from with that.
Sure.
But when I think about the implications it has for average, ordinary people, and then of course we know on a political level, I mean, it could be catastrophic in terms of interfering with democracy.
100%. And I mean, the fact is so I go to this convention every year, VidCon in Anaheim, where they show us some of the latest technology, and the stuff that I saw about 8 months ago completely blew my mind and terrified me, because there were software engineers out there that were basically designing programs to get themselves replaced, to eventually take their jobs. Programs that could code better than a human could. Programs that could do anything that a human could, but, for free, basically. And the technology that I saw 8 months ago has advanced so much just in that short amount of time that I imagine when I go back next year, the things that I'm going to see are going to be even crazier. Technology to replace people that do translation, technology to replace editors. Who knows when it's going to stop? It could replace any one of us. I'm a writer. I write for a living. One day, instead of having writers, you just have this algorithm generating everything, and that's kind of a sad thing to say about society.
So you're laying out a pretty doomsday scenario here in terms of what it can do and what it's already begun to do. The question is, how do you put the genie back in the box if you can? I mean, what sort of legislation has to pass? What has to happen here?
Well, I think people need to boycott a special like this, and I think that people need to kind of be aware of what's happening. I do think that I am giving you kind of the doom and gloom version, admittedly, but I do think that people do recognize, for the most part, that entertainment and kind of the stuff that you guys do. One of the things that's the most effective about it is how spontaneous it could be, right? I'm sure if you look back at your careers and you think of the best moments from when you were hosting, probably pretty much all of them must have been moments that were spontaneous, right? None of that could actually happen with AI. AI is not spontaneous. So you're never going to get brilliance from AI, which you could get from a human. You're never even going to get good entertainment from AI. But, it's these companies that want to do everything cheaply, right? They want to get the most money they can, and they don't really care about quality. They're going to use AI as much as they can. And I think that's why, everybody needs to kind of fight against this. Disney's been doing it for years. They don't use extras anymore in most of their stuff. They just use AI extras. And it's pretty scary when they get slowed down, on a program on Disney Plus, and you can see some of these kind of uncanny valley digital extras. It's kind of scary to see.
Oh, it's so creepy.
But then you have
soulless.
a company like you mentioned, Disney, right? So here's a company where instead of spending thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire real people, the AI would cost them a fraction of that. You kind of wonder, okay, where's your motivation to get rid of this, or to not continue doing this?
That's why government needs to get involved.
Yeah. I think I agree with you, Natasha. I mean, I think you're exactly right, and I agree with you, Aaron, as well. I mean, it's the bottom line is, if you could make, who's going to spend $100,000 on a stadium full of extras if you could just do it with a computer, right? But that kind of thinking is wrong, and that's why that kind of thinking tanks whole industries, right? And could there be a day where radio is hosted by an algorithm? Could there be a day that my job, where I write for a living, won't be a job anymore? There won't be journalism anymore. It'll just be an AI. And who's to say what gets said when it's an AI too? It'll look after certain interests that, a human wouldn't necessarily do. You don't have the judgment of a human. And again, you don't have the spontaneity of a human.
Time to crawl back into that hole for a while. Chris, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
A lot of questions about this as time evolves. I wonder how much in a year from now we'll be saying that when AI has evolved even more, and how scarier it becomes.
I find it very scary.
Chris Bumbray, editor-in-chief at JoBlo.com, if you want to check it out.